Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. With a week off from Six Nations action, it's now time to start the build-up with round 3. And here in the studio, returning from his happy holidays in the West Country, is Steve Cording. Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm good, Lol. How are you? Did you miss me? That's enough. That's all I need to hear.
You were missed. I mean, listen, our listeners missed you, more importantly.
Well, I had a great time in Devon, thank you. It was lovely to go down and see that part of the country, which I know you know is a beautiful place to be, but also got to do a couple of things in London with the kids for half term last week that I'd never done before, which was Thames Clipper. Ever been on that?
Yeah, I have been on the Thames Clipper.
Which is really good. But also went on the cable car as well, which was really exciting for them. I mean, it goes pretty quick, goes pretty high. They loved it. There's a questionable statue outside the station, which my wife took great delight in taking a photograph of. It's, how did I describe it? You know, when in Florence where they have the statues of the men with large...
it's like a Michelangelo.
Exactly, yeah. He has no head, but he has a rather large personality. Let's just put it that way. Which the kids were looking at going... I have no idea why I was there, but that was intriguing. But yeah, lovely to go on that cable car. What about yourself? You've been...
I was on Premiership Cup duties for TNT Sports over the weekend, down in Gloucester on Saturday, where the home team were victorious against Exeter. And then I dashed back to Ealing on Sunday, yesterday, where the visitors were Leicester, earned themselves a place in the final. So I believe the Premiership Cup final will be on Friday Is that 15th?
What do you think? I mean, going down there as a setup, I mean, obviously a lot has been made of the fact that they've been in the top 2 for the last 8 seasons. Yeah. They've still been denied. I had a look into it. They haven't actually applied to get promoted this season because they knew there was no chance.
I mean, everyone says that they've been denied. I mean, the reality is they obviously don't want to be promoted.
Well, that was going to be my question.
Because if they wanted to be promoted, they're clearly good enough. They have a squad that's good enough. They have ambition to be promoted, but when push comes to shove, they don't want to either put the club in financial risk, which is commendable,
sensible,
but equally, they would have to move stadium. They had their biggest crowd of the season, which was 2,500-3,000, whatever it was yesterday, and that is not what the Premiership wants. They want a team that can maybe attract 10,000 at minimum, really. So the criteria for that would be to move to another stadium, which they don't want to do. So you can either, on the one hand, commend them and say, well done, because what English rugby doesn't need is another club that's going to go bust financially.
No.
But equally...
But then what's the point of them, so that they amassed, I mean, I was looking, they've got 1,200 appearances at the top level amongst their team, 60 international caps. What's the point of amassing all that talent and then winning every single game at home, apart from obviously yesterday? Where's the challenge? Where's the next challenge for?
Well, I think for the players, it's games like that, the Premiership Cup. Maybe we'll see a British Cup, British League. But if they're not going to get into the Premiership, then that won't be the challenge. There won't be a challenge for them.
But that was the end of your day, was it, or did you end up going anywhere else?
No. It was the end of my day, but the start of my evening. Because I hot-footed from Ealing down to Barnes to the Bull's Head, which is a very famous jazz pub, really, a very famous pub, to celebrate the stag weekend of one George Gregan. Yes, the incredible rugby player who's getting married in March.
Quiet night, was it? Listening to jazz?
What makes you think that?
Your rouge complexion says it all.
Yes. Yeah. No, we had a fantastic evening.
Well, he'll have some interesting viewing this week because the Eddie Jones documentary, Fly on the Wall, about the Australia in the World Cup is out. It's on Stan Sport. I don't know whether we can watch it in the UK. I hope we can, because I've seen some of the clips which look unbelievable, including one where he took a cattle prod into a team meeting. I wonder why Australia didn't succeed. So that will be make interesting. I'm sure that will make some headlines.
Well, I mean, listen, Eddie Jones is, whichever way you look at him, whatever you think of him, he's actually box office. I find him incredibly. He's actually, if he was sat here now, he's good. He's great company. He really is. He just needs a bit of balance, really, when he needs players that are strong enough just to stand up to him and go, mate, have you been on the port again?
Yeah.
Because we're not doing that.
Exactly. So, talking of box office, Six Nations, should we get our guest on?
Yes, let's do that. Let's introduce our guest this week. He's a former Scotland captain with 76 caps to his name. It's John Barclay. John, how are you?
Very well. How you getting on?
Yeah, all good, thank you. I hear you're just back from a ski trip with the family. Come on, make us all jealous. So obviously now you haven't got to spend Six Nations weekends getting prepared for games. A good week with the family.
Yeah, tiring. Like, with kids is half a morning spent solo, and then the rest of the afternoon spent trying to stop your kids killing themselves. But yeah, great, awesome. Didn't do it for 16 years as a player. Grew up skiing, so yeah, brilliant. One of the perks of being retired.
Does the avalanche warning go up when JB arrives on the slopes, or are you quite a considered technically perfect skier?
No, I used to ski like a madman. I grew up skiing, and then I put my Garmin. I was trying. I was going like 68 miles an hour or 68 kilometers an hour. I thought, if I fall, this isn't very smart anymore. So I kind of taper it back a little bit.
He's certainly a man of precision. Look at those shirts behind him. How they're done with. Look, accuracy, aren't they? What are those shirts, John? Which games are they from?
I actually am embarrassed to put them up with the present company. But no, the only shirts I've kept, and I don't actually know what the other ones are. It's my Scarlet's final jersey where we won my first game as Scotland captain, and then Richard McCaw shirt.
Wow. Ooh. Well, listen, very good collection, and it brings us neatly straight into business. Scotland, their Six Nations campaign, John. You've been watching, you've been commentating, you've been working very hard. How do you view their campaign so far? Because, I just felt this year might be Scotland's year, and it may still be.
It seems like we're saying that every year, or certainly some people are. It could be better, couldn't it? But it also could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
So I think on the one hand, at one point I thought they were going to take Wales to the cleaners, and they probably should have done, and then picked up well against France. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it, the sort of try or no try. They could be sitting 2 from 2 like England, like Ireland. Going into this weekend against England would have made it a bit more exciting. But I think, probably frustrating, just knowing that they probably did enough in both games to win, but that's you kind of get what you get.
Yeah. Do you think that will, in the atmosphere, will be a bit more intense given what happened at the end of the France game? Because I've just looked on your Twitter account this morning, and that's still your last posts that you put up there. It's try or no try, and the debate goes on, doesn't it? But do you think that will just add a little bit more? I mean, Scotland special anyway, isn't it? But it probably doesn't need any more, but I'm sure it will ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. I think Scotland, England at Murrayfield is always going to be probably the game from a Scottish point of view, from an atmosphere and fans and engage, all that sort of stuff. The noise around is always big. So I'd say, I just think there'll be a lot of frustration from the guys and the fans alike. And I think we might have lost a little bit of that excitement that we maybe would have had if it had been, 2 unbeaten sides going at it. But I still think that these are the games that, especially given the history of the last 5 or 6 years against these two sides, I think this will be a big one.
John, you captained Scotland in 2018, beating England for the first time in the Six Nations for 10 years, actually. Now Scotland sort of do it quite regularly. They made that winning a kind of habit. What do you remember about the game that you captained? It's obviously a big, proud moment for you to do that against England in the Six Nations.
Yeah, I remember I grew up and I sadly played through a lot of the sort of the poorer years against England, and I kind of selfishly hope that my picture might be that on the Calcutta Cup and on the posters around Murrayfield for a few years, but it's kind of not been that way. Right, every captain since has managed to do it. So, like I said, there hadn't been many happy memories, and 2018 was the year after we'd taken an absolute pasting down at Twickenham, and that one I think was pretty sore for myself and a lot of players. So that game was I think was a kind of, there was a feeling of we have to at some point break this duck, and it came off. So it was a pretty fiery game. We had obviously the little scrap in the tunnel pre-game with Ryan Wilson and Owen Farrell. And
are you now admitting that you actually saw that? Because I read something this morning that you claimed that you were in the toilet. And I was.
I always joke about what kind of captain I'd like to be, and I always thought I'd be the captain like Patrick Vieira or Roy Keane arguing at the time. I was in the bog, so
Don't believe that, John. Unlike you, to shy away from a wee skirmish with the English.
Well, it just makes it a bit more tasty. I looked this morning. I mean, my first trip to Murrayfield was 1991. England beat Scotland 9-6, I think it was, in the World Cup semi-final.
Really?
John, I think you were only 5, which that cheered me up this morning. But I mean, the intensity of that day, I still remember now. I made the mistake of wearing an England shirt on the terrace, and it was just in the evening I had to take it off. It was on the back of obviously 1990 and everything that happened there, and that was such a massive occasion for Scotland. But for the first time, I felt there the real despise, is that a
no,
hatred?
Word?
Hatred. Fair enough. Hatred.
It's okay.
Hatred that there is for the English. Yeah. It overwhelmed me, really. I hadn't seen Braveheart by then. I've seen it now, so probably I know why. But is it still England for you as a Scot? Is that still the game?
Probably. I think less. I think if you switch it around, I think certainly from 2010 they won it before then, or whatever it was, 2009, 2010, and then it kind of felt for a lot of years that it meant so much more to the Scottish players, and they couldn't get their hands on it, and that kind of desperation, and it feels like that's probably balanced itself up. But now I think the English guys you see, and last year you had Lewis Ludlam coming out and talking about it, and I think it's great. I think both teams have a genuine or dislike on the pitch for each other, hatred, call it what you want. They know each other pretty well now, but I think you've got to embrace this side of the rivalry and not try and shy away from it.
Yeah, and I think given that England have actually only won one of the last 6 meetings, wow. I mean, it's like England are like Scotland at the moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. As in, they're the ones looking for a victory. And I think it's completely the other way. I mean, you've got an England team that should be incredibly motivated because listen, losing to Scotland is they're a very good side, but only winning 1 out of the last 6. I mean, that is, in my opinion, as a rugby player, that's unacceptable, really. So I'd like to think this group might try and redress the balance a little bit.
Did you do anything special with the Calcutta? Who was it who kicked the Calcutta Cup down the street after they'd won? Was that
JJ
and Dean Richards, I think. John Jeffrey, I think, and
yeah.
Well, it did.
JJ got banned for 6 months, and Dean Richards, I think he got a 3-day ban or something.
Oops. Well, he's normally kicking students down the street, so kicking the Calcutta Cup is it?
And is it right that Nicola Sturgeon did she sip champagne from the Calcutta Cup? Is that right, John, or is that
I think it was more like to be Buckfast. I think someone was. They all came in. I think they had J.K. Rowling came in. We had a guy called Nick Grigg who was a sort of kilted Kiwi, and he thought she was Roald Dahl and was asking her about all her books. So he's not the smartest too. Yeah, it was. They come out the woodwork, don't they, when there's a big win, kick around the changing rooms. She didn't come down when we were losing, let's put it that way.
Actually, I lost her at Murrayfield in 2000, scored the opening try of the game, and then obviously the heavens opened up, and was it Hodgie scored the winning try? Yeah. I can't quite remember, but myself.
I was a pitch invader that day, Lawrence.
Myself and Jason Leonard were the only two. What did you say? You were ball boy that day.
I was a pitch invader.
Oh, were you? Good man. Jason Leonard and I were the only 2 Englishmen that actually went out and turned up at the bar where the Scots were celebrating. And quite rightly, when you lose, you got to accept that.
Really, only 2 of you went.
Yeah. Ooh. But listen, it was a fantastic evening. We were well looked after, put it that way. I don't remember much more about it. Listen, let's look ahead to this weekend's fixtures when England head up to Murrayfield. John, in terms of Scotland, I mean, it's easy for us to focus on that last minute try, no try, which was, it was a try in everyone's book. But where do you think the real positives have come from, from them? Because everyone just focuses on Finn being the outstanding player, but there's been more to their game than just Finn Russell this season.
And I think that's where probably the World Cup, and I go back to it because Scotland really shouldn't have got out of the group. You lose to the eventual winners and the team that beat the winners. It's no great surprise. And the fact that they limped out arguably was the most frustrating thing, and I think they became too predictable. So it's a bit nuanced, but the most pleasing part for me is that they're not trying to play with too much width, and they're actually using someone like Sione Tuipulotu like a battering ram, and then also use his softer skills later in the game. So it feels like they've matured a bit, their attacking game. And I think it's no coincidence that you see the best of Finn Russell when he gets time on the ball, and he's not trying to play a wide-to-wide game when teams are blitzing. So I think if they play like that, that'll feed into that blitz defense we spoke about. So I think there's been bits that have been really good. Their discipline, obviously, against France was very good.
Yeah.
I think Ben White's, ticking on really nicely at 9. I think it's probably been a solid, if not flashy start, but they've done just about enough.
Yeah, shall we just get a prediction from both of you then before we look at the other 2 games this weekend? What do you actually think the score will be then, John?
I quite like your one, the stat predictor gave out 23-22. I'm going to go with that.
No, there we go. Lawrence?
I tell you, given what's happened in the last 6 years, I'm hard pushed to disagree with that. I desperately want England to win, and for me, success. I said this at the beginning of the tournament. Success for England is winning more games than they lose. so given that they've got up for Ireland at home and then France away. This is a game that they have to win. They have to win, and if they have that level of desperation that I don't think we've seen from an England side, maybe since the opening couple of weeks of the World Cup, then I think they've got a chance, but it's going to be very, very tight. Yeah. Do you know what I'm craving from an England perspective is just some innovation. I think when I've seen England's best performances, I'm thinking they, as you say, Nick, coincided with Tuolangi playing. 2019 away in Dublin against pretty much the same sort of Ireland squad as certainly up front as is playing today. First line out, straight over the top, straight to Tuolangi, over the gain line, sets the tone for the game. And fast forward to the semi-final against New Zealand, the haka, all the build-up, the anticipation for the game. I think they did something quite similar as well, And for someone who is a student of the game like Steve Borthwick, I just feel like the game we've allowed England to become very predictable in what we do, and maybe we've been a little bit afraid to innovate. And Scotland used to have to innovate against England because they couldn't match us physically or the same power and the same size. I think England now need to admit that if they haven't got the same ingredients in their recipe, that there's nothing wrong with innovating and finding ways of getting people like Ollie Lawrence or getting Tuolangi into the game nice and quickly.
Well, what about Nick, in the camp? England open training session last Friday at Twickenham. 10,000 turned up, allowed in free. Wow. They're going to do it again at the end of the Six Nations, aren't they? Not at Twickenham, I don't think that time, but it does feel that there are more efforts being made to get a better connection with the public. Do you feel that within the camp when you're there? Is there a little bit more openness going on? I saw them playing, they weren't playing beer pong, but they were playing some kind of version of it on social media over the weekend, and there does seem to be more behind the scenes clips coming out as well. Is there a general effort to do that, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a balance there. It's still, I would say it still doesn't go far enough. I'd say, yes, it's good, and that's a step in the right direction, and a lot of that is down to Jamie George and what he wants to bring out of things, but I think they've got to do more still. I think it's great to see the steps that they've made, but equally, the game is it's crying out for more openness, and it's got to sell itself. Yeah. And the only way to sell itself is by telling the stories that are in there. So and that takes time, and it takes time away from preparing and all the rest of it. But that's unfortunately where we're at. And as we keep talking about American sports, they can find the time. NFL's the most complicated sport in the world, but they can find all the time in a week, even in the Super Bowl, to do all their media commitments. So, I think what we found as a media group covering England, is that actually the access has been, slightly pared back. And I can understand why. It's a good temptation to do that. But actually what happens is there become, less information comes out. And it's what the public want. It's what people want. It's what supporters want. They want to read a variety of things. Yeah. We're trying to give it to them. And I think they just need to give us some more access. And
also, I think, the best PR you can possibly have is just play really well. And I know it might be a bit dramatic to say this, but I think this game is quite a defining game in the Steve Borthwick era. England have won 2 games, but they could easily be sat here having lost 2. But let's give them credit; they've found a way of winning. having been down at half-time in that Italy game and really looking like they might let the Wales game slip away from them. This is a tough challenge. This is a team that they've only beaten once in the last 6 games. It's away from home. It's against the team that we'll be expecting to win, favourites. So I think it's a really, really big game for England, like huge game. I think if they win this, I think, then England fans can start to look forward. Steve, thanks for your company, and my thanks to you, Nick, and also our special guest, John Barclay, and my thanks to VoxPod Studios for everything they do for us. We'll be back next week, but until then, thanks for listening and goodbye.